a Fidelity Visa card for payments, and it's that simple. From now till the 10th of September, you use your Fidelity Visa card at least 10 times each week, and you could win 1,000 Ghana cedis in the Fidelity 10 over 10 promo. And then on 10th September, the highest transacting customer will automatically win 10,000 Ghana cedis. So go on, make all payments with your Fidelity Visa card, and you could be 10,000 cedis richer. Terms and conditions apply. Together, let's stay safe and protected. Fidelity, believe with us. Right, so there we go. Forward ever, backwards never. Be brave, be confident, and be determined, and certainly be joyful. Give yourself a treat with Puma drinks. Yes, Puma drinks are specially made for you. Enjoy Puma drinks in apple, cola, tamarind, apple, banana, orange, tropical, a burst of energy, malt, cranberry, and pineapple. Fortified with essential vitamins, Puma drinks got you and your whole friends and family covered. Treat yourself today with Puma drinks. Puma drinks, a whole new vibe. And is available at major distribution points and retail outlets at 13 cedis per pack and 1 cedi 50 pesos per bottle. For bulk purchase, call 0262 351 251. Another quality product from Casapreco Company Limited. So coming up this morning on the Super Morning Show.
Data will show that the infrastructure we have provided in many districts over the last 3.5 years surpasses what they provided in 8 years.
Right, so that's Dr. Baumia talking about what the NPP has done in 3.5 years, being more than what the NDC done in its what the NDC did in its 8 years.
But we also completed a number of sea defense programs that we inherited. Abuazi, Ajua, Blekosu, Niltakradi, Nkontompo. So if anybody tells you we have abandoned, it must be Nkontompo.
Dr. Bamia over there talking about Nkotompo on the Super Morning Show.
Data will show that the infrastructure we have provided in many districts over the last 3.5 years surpasses what they provided in 8 years to those districts. We are building all this infrastructure while staying committed to our social contract of providing free senior high school education, creating jobs, transforming agriculture, industrializing the economy, sustaining the National Health Insurance Scheme, digitizing the economy, ensuring public safety of Ghanaians, and keeping the lights on. The future is bright if we stay the course. That is why we are asking the good people of Ghana to give Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the MPP 4 more to do more for you.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Bank fraud, because a lot of you also were sending messages about mobile money fraud and, all under the Bank of Ghana. See, so today I would have Dr. Joseph Franz, coming into the studio again and addressing all your concerns here on the Super Morning Show. So if you have any concerns, if you've been a victim of, bank fraud, mobile money fraud, just join us using the hashtag JoySMS on Twitter so we can ask those questions on your behalf. And you can also join us on WhatsApp 0244 340 437 0244 340 437. We're still trying, to get Information Minister Kojo Oppong Nkrumah to speak to us this morning. We'll be speaking to him shortly here on the Super Morning Show. And we'll also be speaking to President of Imani, Franklin Kojo. But before we speak to Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, we've told you, and I know you know this very well, the fact that we are certainly your election headquarters, and we are also your election voice quarters. So, today, listen to this.
I am just hesitant in putting out names. I've been trying to withdraw my investment for the past 4 months from a reputable financial institution. I would like to talk to your producer of air,
exactly,
so that it could be investigated. I don't want to, bring down anybody's business where people are doing panic withdrawal and all of that. I have had to write a letter, formal complaint to Bank of Ghana to see to it that depositors from that particular institution is paid. I mean, what else can we do? You put your money in business. Ghanaians don't understand that the money is not yours. They come in and they want to steal.
After working with in the public sector for 39 years. I put my money at Adil Finance. And for close to 2 years now, all my retirement benefits were locked with Adil Finance. So when the government asked the receiver to pay us, it just paid us a fraction. And they are telling us that we should wait for 5 years before we can get our money.
Right, so that's some of the questions, some of the concerns you had yesterday when we had the conversation with the Head of Financial Stability of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Joseph France. He'll be here again this morning. He'll be addressing all the concerns and all the questions that you have. But on election voice quarters today, listen to Victoria
The government
Hammer.
will soon set up the PKI security architecture to provide an increased level of confidence for online comments and communication and collaboration. What is the speech I edited? This is not the speech I edited. No, I can't read this. And that's what I was working on this morning. I edited the speech, and this is different. And so I'm trying to speak from my mind, so maybe I'll do that.
Well, what I do know is that I know the program we have coming up this morning here on the Super Morning Show. That's Victoria Hammer talking about speech that she edited that she couldn't find. That's your election voice quarters here on the Super Morning Show. You're on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM, and we've been joined by Information Minister Kojo Oppong. Yesterday, government had its first in a series of town hall meetings showcasing, its infrastructure development projects, and the government says with over 17,000 projects undertaking and more than 8,000 completed, with 8,588 ongoing. Their infrastructure development is unmatched if compared to the NDC's 8 years in government. Information Minister Kojo Oppong has joined us. Good morning, Kojo, and thank you very much for joining us.
Winston, good morning. Morning to your listeners. Thanks for having me.
Great. So let's get into the program last night. And already there are concerns that, well, if you've done so well, why do you need to organize an event to showcase it? You say the projects are everywhere in the districts. Why don't you allow the people to see them?
Well, the people see them already, but there are a number of reasons for which we at the Ministry of Information have a responsibility to put together town hall meetings like this and speak to what the people already see on the ground. The first is that our Constitution requires probity and accountability of governments. I'm sure you've noticed that as a part of some of the 4 preambles of our Constitution.
Sure. In
fulfillment of that, whether the people see it or not, we have an obligation to account to the people for what we have done over a period. This is 3.5 years plus of the Akufo-Addo administration, and it is a good time to fulfill that constitutional obligation of accounting to the people for what we have done. Number 2, many a Ghanaian lives in a particular part of the country and sees what has been done in his or her part of the country, but does not see the full picture. So if you take, for example, your listeners who are in East Legon, I had opportunity to chat with a few of them yesterday who raised similar concerns. But we live in East Legon. We see the asphalt roads you've done in East Legon. Why do you need to have a town hall meeting to tell us? And my answer to them was that, well, we're not just telling you about the asphalt roads in East Legon. We're telling you about the total kilometrage of roads that we have done in East Legon and across the country. And in addition to that, all the other 17,336 other projects that we have done in other parts of the country, so that as people seek to find out for themselves what have you done in the area of infrastructure, you have a whole compendium, a total story, an exhaustive story that we can refer to. So today, you, Winston, for example, know the number 17,000 plus, because this is what we have done. It now gives us an opportunity as we go forward in our democracy for us to compare to what other administrations will do. Would theirs be 19,000? Will it be 15,000? Would we, God willing, when we have a second term, even seek to outdo ourselves by doing a bit more? So it adds to accountability, but it also allows citizens and other stakeholders to see a comprehensive picture across the country of what has been done, region by region, district by district.
Okay, so last night I saw something. I heard the Vice President actually acknowledging projects started by the previous administration. There's been concerns in the past that government always takes credit for some projects that it did not start. Do I see a departure from that situation? And so going forward, the government would acknowledge projects started under the previous administration?
I think it's our colleagues on the other side who were initially apprehensive that we will seek to appropriate their projects without credit. If you would recall, even before the event started, some of our colleagues on the other side started flighting on social media platforms an argument that even the hall in which we were going to have the event was a hall that was constructed, commissioned by former President Mahama, and that defeats the whole infrastructure conversation. But I think they got it very wrong. We are not in the business of appropriating their project. In fact, if you go to the website, the 17,300 projects, they are projects that we did. The Vice President in his presentation then made mention of other projects which we had inherited. He used the word inherited and completed, or successfully brought quite extensively to its completion. If you look at some of the E-blocks, if you look at some of the hospital projects, about 30 of them, out of which we've completed about 16, and ensured that things were put in their proper context. So in our conversations, we will be quite clear on what we inherited and completed, but our focus, even as we account to the people, primarily is on what we started, the percentage of which we have completed, the percentage of which we have not completed. I think it's almost about 50-50, and therefore what confidence Ghanaians can have in our ability to deliver on infrastructure, not just a few signature projects in Accra, Kumasi, or Takrady, but evenly distributed across the country before we come to the value for money question as a second tier.
Okay, and so let's just look at this and also talk about the value for money bit, because the Vice President talks about 4 interchanges. That's the Tema. He talks about the Pokwase, and he talks about Obeche-Bilamte and the Tamale interchange. So the Pokwase interchange, yes, he admits that loan was signed under the John Mahama administration. In the Tema and Obeche-Bilamte, the NDC also make the point that these were projects, particularly Obeche-Bilamte, an agreement taken to Parliament in 2016 before the NDC exited. In the Tema interchange, discussions had been held. Yes, the NPP signed the loan agreement, but they had held discussions and were in the process of doing that. So they say these are projects.
You cannot have your cake and eat it. You cannot have your cake and eat it. First of all, our colleagues should take their time and understand the context within which the Vice President was speaking. First of all, he was talking about value for money. And he says that these are 4 interchanges that we have commenced construction. We have had the opportunity to renegotiate in good sense or in large sense the cost and the scope of these projects. We do not deny the fact that the conversations were commenced by the previous administration. We don't deny that fact.
Okay.
But in all fairness, these are projects that we've had to renegotiate in terms of cost and scope. So you can situate it in the NDC context and in the MPP context and do a proper comparison. Now, do the comparison of MPP-NDC. Take Pokwase interchange, for example. The NDC commenced a conversation for the Pokwase interchange. No doubt about it. The MPP completed and renegotiated the scope of that interchange. When the NDC negotiated the Pokwase interchange, for the same value of the project, it was a 3-tier interchange. When the MPP renegotiated the scope, without $1 more, without a peso more, we managed to get the scope expanded to a 4-tier interchange. Now, for students of economics, of project management, students of governance and development, there are critical questions that we have to ask here. How is it that the same project at the same cost, the NPP administration gets a 4-tier interchange and the NDC gets a tier interchange? What happened to the value for money analysis? Was it dereliction of duty? Was it an inflation of the price? These are questions we have to raise and get answers to. But the Ghanaian can be rest assured that the NPP administration delivers higher value for money. For example, on Poko. I'll put it together. If you put Tema and Pokwase and Obechebilamte and Tamale together, those 4 interchanges are about, $289 million. If you take the Kwame Nkrumah interchange only, the entire project, phase 1 and phase 2, dollar value, if you convert all the other currencies to dollar, that's about 260. Again, the question of value for money is coming up. How come the NPP gets 4 interchanges for 289 and the NDC gets 1 interchange for 260? And don't say it's a matter of scope, because the Pokwase interchange alone is a mega edifice in terms of scope comparative to the Circle interchange, or what some would like to call the Dubai interchange. So I think as the value for money question is a very big question that we are hoping our colleagues in the media, civil society organizations, etc., will have an opportunity to raise and analyze as we start this comparison of infrastructure records between the NPP's 3-year record and the NDC's, first of all, 3-year record, because you would notice that we are asking that they also produce their first, you see 4-year, first term infrastructure records, and then secondly, their whole 8-year record as compared to our 4-year record. We like it to be put on the table so that we can do a deep dive, a deep analysis of, first of all, how widespread it is. Is it 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 signature projects in Accra, Kumasi, Takrady? Or is it about 17,000 projects across the country? Then you come to the value for money question as we are raising last night and this morning.
Okay, finally, so I see a research that Imani conducted from, the NPP's first 3 years in office. And Imani scored the NPP 46.44% when it comes to infrastructure. Now, that same, report, Imani in 2015, the NDC's 3 years scored 51.3%. So, according to Imani, the NDC performed better than the NPP from 2013 to 2015, end of 2015, and from the NPP from 2017 to end of 2019. What's your reaction to that?
But Imani's proposition, you recall that even when it comes to General Manifesto performance, when we were scoring ourselves 78 delivered and delivering, Imani thought otherwise. Imani is thought otherwise on several things. You recall the recent Electoral Commission registration exercise where they said it was impossible to register a certain number of people within the 30 or 40-day period that he had put out. So Imani has a way of computing their own statistics, but we don't begrudge them. They are an organization in a democracy that has freedom of expression, and they are at liberty so to do. We don't necessarily benchmark ourselves, with great respect about what Imani says. They are entitled to it and to put it out and to defend it. But what we have done last night is to account to the people, to provide the full exhaustive list, region by region, district by district, of the 17,300 plus projects that we have commenced during this period. And we have put it out there for the Ghanaian and all well-minded persons to interrogate and do a comparative if they decide to do with any other database that may be put out there.
So we're told this was the first in a series of town hall meetings. The impression is that it would continue?
From the beginning of the year, we're going to do about 12 town hall meetings, but COVID put us all indoors. So we're getting back on the ground. You see a series of engagements with the general public to update and to provide our data to report to the country on several things. Some of them will take the form of town hall meetings. Some of them will be national updates. But you can be rest assured that we will discharge our obligation of accounting to the people as best as we can.
Thank you very much, Kojo, for joining us.
Thank you, Winston.
So that's Kojo Oppong, who is Minister for Information. But one thing you can trust us to do is to find the projects and have the conversation on, the records of all 2 political parties. And talking about Imani, we've been joined by President of Imani, Franklin Kojo. Franklin, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Winston. Good morning to your production team and your co-host. I hope Ghanaians are very well as well. Good morning to them.
Great. So I'm sure you heard the final part of Kojo Oppong making the point that, government has come up with its figures. Imani can come up with its figures, but they have what they are looking at and not what Imani is talking about. In 2019, you scored the government 46.44% when it comes to infrastructure. And in 2015, you scored the NDC 51% when it comes to infrastructure. Is it a case that the NDC has performed better in its first 3 years in the area of infrastructure than the NPP?
Well, first of all, a few house duties. The suggestion that the comparison should be based on the first term in office is not necessarily, it shouldn't be the case. I think it is important to situate the conversations on the number of years in office. You see, every government comes into office for 4 years. And then if it did well, you may be returned to office. So we are basing our comparison on the 2012 manifestos of the 2012 to 2016 manifesto of the NDC as against 2016 to 2019 progress performance of the NPP. So otherwise, if you decided to use that the first tense, somebody can also start introducing all manner of metrics. The NDC can claim, for instance, that, much of the growth in 2017 and somehow 2018 were due to the investments they made. Would you then say that you should disassociate the NDC from it anyway? And I think the Vice President was quite candid when he said that, look, there have been some projects started by the NDC that they continued. And he wants to have a conversation about, national conversation about building the country. But unfortunately, the politics of our time also demands comparison. And I think rather than I think the two political parties have brought this on in terms of this infrastructure debate. Frankly, it's been helpful because in 2019, when the NPP did their town hall meeting in Kumasi, they undershot themselves in terms of infrastructure achievements. In fact, we pointed out to them that instead of 5 achievements that they listed, we counted about 22 or so. So we actually did a better job analyzing their own performance than they did. So it's good they've woken up and have come to the full realization that the 46.4% that they got is actually a reflection of exactly what was said yesterday by Vice President Baumia. So the point really is that the comparison is much needed. And you see, these are over areas that are comparable. ICT, the ports, roads, highways, urban water delivery, rural water delivery. These are just major areas, and then energy, of course. And so for me, if you look at what we did for the NDC, by the way, we counted 540 promises of the NDC. And they themselves were not even aware that they had made 540 promises. I remember the look on the face of my good friend Omani Buama when we presented to them that we have actually counted 540 promises. But they looked at it. In fact, what they said was that Imani was such a very wicked examiner and that they were even pleased to have gotten 47% as of 2015 when they were expecting 40%. So they knew where their position was. Same thing with the NPP. We counted 510 promises. They said they did 340. By the time we're ending, we're almost at par because we said that they had delivered 29% of promises. They said 27% fully. We counted 70% in terms of delivering and delivered. They counted 78 or so. And so, in effect, it was almost the same, irrespective of the numbers, really. But on the specific issue of the infrastructure, I think the Vice President has introduced another element, which I suspect is a very important conversation, value for money. The Vice President has been at it for quite a while now. Unfortunately, some aspects of the government do not listen to him. So the Electoral Commission, for instance, wasteful $150 million project. The Kelly GBG, for instance, was a waste. The Unipass, which the Vice President beautifully shepherded, not the Unipass, but the POS infrastructure, but a section of the government disowned him and disgraced him in that regard. So wasting money in the course of the performance of that act.
Okay.
So the point to make is that the value for money is a very important conversation, and it's very important that we need to have.
Why is it important to have that conversation?
You see, my brother, for the simple reason that when politicians make promises, they usually do not tell us how they are going to finance these projects. You realize.
Sure.
And so we then dovetail into the conversations at our desk. I'm sure the NDC will come back and say, well, even the things you claim you've done, even though it did not match up to what we did when we had our term from 2012 to 2015, we have borrowed more. In fact, you borrowed $130 billion more than they had borrowed.
As in 130 billion cities?
130 billion cities, sorry.
Okay.
So it's an important conversation to have. So the source of the resource envelope, how you're actually mobilizing the money is a very critical factor. And I doff my hat to Baumia for bringing that in. Indeed, it is important to compare projects because it's the only way we can secure value for money on almost all our projects. I would have wished that these roads were even constructed by the private sector and then told and paid so that the government will not borrow recklessly and then decide to shortchange us in terms of the budgeting process or the costing project process as well. So we can elevate the conversation a notch higher to say that, okay, now we see the two of you. You are like twins, but you don't accept that you are twins. You're identical twins in fact, but you don't accept it. So let's introduce another layer. All these hospitals that the president says he wants to build, one a year, plus another 11. All the things Mahama wants to do, 10 billion infrastructure push. Question, how much of that should be undertaken by the private sector? Because the private sector has a penchant for managing some of these processes much well. Look at the UGMC. Wasn't it a public-private partnership approach, even though it had some challenges? So that we need to start accepting, in fact, removing the government from commanding the height of the economy so that they can lay claim to all the things that we use our taxes for. They use our taxes for and actually borrow on our behalf.
Okay.
So value for money is an important conversation too. And I remember the Vice President held a whole conference, a 2-day conference, I think, on value for money. And during that conversation, let me just add this. In fact, I was there myself, and I remember the Pentecost University showcased how they built some of their hospitals and other infrastructure, almost a third or close to half of the cost of similar projects the government had undertaken. And Baumia was full of praise. In fact, the finance minister was full of praise for them, which means that it is possible to undertake these kinds of interventions. And indeed, it is important that the conversations about value for money are had now.
Okay. So finally, Franklin, per your investigations, per your research, between the two, the NDC scored 51%, NPP 46% in the area of infrastructure.
51.36 and then 46.44. And this is against the backdrop of what my good friend Kojo Nkrumah said. I mean, we agree to disagree. But I think we woke them up from the slumber because they had undershot themselves when they counted just 5. In 2019, when they held a town hall meeting, we counted a lot more, 22. And the application and you see the yardsticks is so sacrosanct. We met with the ME monitor and evaluation team, and they virtually agreed that, well, they were looking at certain, should I say, high value for money project and not necessarily the entire manifesto.
Okay.
But if you look at it critically, we are almost saying the same thing, irrespective of the number of promises. Right.
Thank you very much. Franklin Kojo, who is president of Imani Center for Policy and Education, joining us here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. George Ado Jr. and the rest of the team are here. But before we get into the world of sports, it's important that we bring you the Nestle Nutrition Line, brought to us by Nestle. Nestle offers good food for a good life.